Hey everyone, my name is Christine Kreischer. I'm one of the pastors at GT Church and your host for the Growing Together episode, where we bring you new episodes every Wednesday to give you a midweek boost of encouragement and inspiration that will motivate you to live out your faith, to put it into practice, to not just be hearers of the word, but doers of the word. At GT Church, we are 4 weeks into a sermon series called the Red Letter Challenge, and it's been awesome already. This past Sunday, Pastor Scott preached a powerful and challenging message about serving, and today I asked Kim Geddes to join us so that we can dig a little bit deeper. So Kim, thank you so much for doing this. For those of you who don't know Kim yet, Kim is on staff at GT as our Serve Director, which means what, Kim?
It just means that I get to help connect people to serving here inside the church walls. And I get to celebrate and love, and anything that comes up to do with volunteers, hopefully comes my way and I get to have a hand in it. So I absolutely love what I get to do here at church. Yeah.
We know you do, and we love to do what you do. And we're going to unpack that a little bit in just a few minutes. But you haven't always been on staff at GT Church, right?
No, I wasn't. I spent from the age of 16 till my early 20s in retail management. And then I went into banking, and I managed the teller side of a bank for, I guess, 17 years it was. And I was serving as a serve coach. It was a new position here, a new role, a new team, came out of sort of failure of how you guys were doing it. And I saw a little blurb back then we did a weekly bulletin, and I was serving in Kids Min at the time. And I saw this and I thought, it's a little out of my comfort zone, but I feel like God just told me, like, go check this out. And so it was Courtney Good at the time, and spoke to Courtney and jumped in and learned, how to be a serve coach. And it led to a full-time position. And, I remember feeling like, pinch me. The first day I drove here to the parking lot was April 1st. And I was like, is somebody going to tell me April Fool's at the door? And talk about feeling not equipped to do this. But God has just been so faithful, and, he called me, so he equipped me and continues to, thankfully.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah. And back up a little bit, because how did you and your family even find your way to GT Church? So you were in banking, and
Yep. My husband, Mark, his mom was a UCC pastor. We had lived in Ohio the first year of marriage. I was 19 when we got married. So we moved away from home and had a year and a half away from home, and came back and started attending the church that we got married in, and he attended as a kid. And we were there, I'm going to say probably 18 years or so. And then things started to change. We served there faithfully. It was a smaller church, so you know how that goes. You kind of, everybody does everything, so you have your hand in everything. And Mark was a deacon, and our friends, the Bonners, actually were searching for a new church, and we were just kind of feeling that stirring. And so I came one Sunday with them, and I remember I would be back at our old church, and I would be wondering, I wonder what's being talked about across town. And so that's when I knew, like, it was time. But Mark wanted to finish his commitment out in his time serving there. And so we did that. And then we kind of made the shift here. So, and just, I kind of never looked back. We just loved it instantly. So, yeah.
And I loved you guys instantly. I have to be honest. And I'm really serious when I say this. One of the first things that I noticed about you and Mark and your kids was that you were really, like, truly humble servants behind the scenes. When Pastor Scott this past Sunday talked about that towel, right, that he received when he received his, I think it was his life, he was ordained as a minister. It was that reminder of, like, you're a servant first, right? And that I can literally picture you and Mark with rags in your hand, towels in your hand, just behind the scenes, cleaning up behind, like, the different events that we were doing, and just humbly serving, no accolades, and did not want any. And that was just so refreshing to me, because it was so upside down, the way that you live, the way that you modeled that for your children. So incredibly inspiring, because it was that those small things. Pastor Scott talked about that on Sunday, right? About it really is the small things that really matter.
And I think for us, we came from a church where we knew everyone. And so, we would we were in the Next Gen Center for church at that time. And we would sit there and, kind of watch everything happening. But we knew, and we needed to sit for a little bit. We needed that. We needed to kind of, just figure out what God was doing. But we needed to be a part of things. We couldn't sit by very long. And I think one of our first things we did was VBS, I think Vacation Bible School. And from there, it just kind of, triggered an avalanche of a bunch of stuff. And, for both of us, I joke because I say I worked my way down through the church building. I served up in youth ministry for a while. They had like a little cafe kind of thing, and I would sell candy to kids. And then with you and kids ministry, I would come in and set up like a breakfast for the volunteer team in the morning, and then come back. And so, for your huddles, and then come back and sort of pack it all away. And then serve coaching came up, and that's where I think God really began to show me, what all he had for me here. So
it's those little steps, right? And I remember watching you as you took each of those steps, and seeing you as you took more and more, I wouldn't say more and more steps, as you took steps to figure out and find your fit in the kingdom, right? How God has uniquely wired you. I watched you come alive. I watched you kind of go from this, like, quiet behind the scenes, just real, to like more excited, more connected to God, right through that experience. It was really, really cool to watch.
Yeah. Well, we are a pretty big church, and I remember it can be a little intimidating coming in. And one of those myths is that, we have it all figured out. And boy, when I came on staff, I realized, oh no, this place runs on volunteer power for sure. Right. And so the more people we can get connected and involved, the better. And it just takes this big church and shrinks it down. I remember seeing people and going, those are people I want to get to know. Like, and that happened. And, it was shoulder tapping, because we talk about shoulder tapping all the time, right? Which is just recruiting others to come join the fun.
Yes.
But that, before we had the serve, like, kind of process that we have now, that's how we recruited people, with shoulder tapping. And that's how I was recruited by Brenda Bonner, asked me to serve at VBS. And then you asked me to do the Kidsman thing. And I don't know if you saw, like, hospitality is one of my giftings. And so that is how God gifted me. And so I love doing that, baking. I just had somebody text me last week for my baked oatmeal recipe, and it was crazy. Yeah. So, just stuff like that. And, when you're doing something that you love to do, you do come alive. You can't help but come alive. Yeah. And when you're doing it for other people, that's like the big thing. When you're doing it outside of yourself for other people, to serve others, like, that is the huge piece of it. Yeah.
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 It
comes from your heart.
Right. And sometimes you have to do some things and to discover what you're meant to do, right? Because there were certain things that I trying to find my fit, like, okay, where I wanted to serve, like you said, like I sat back for a little while and kind of hid and observed, but thought, man, I would love to be a part of this, because this is so incredible. These people are partnering with God to change the world. And I want to be a part of that. But I have some apprehensions, and we'll talk about that. But I took some steps and realized, nope, not supposed to be doing that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
But then eventually, out of obedience and just like, okay, trying some things, we say everything's an experiment and nothing's forever. And I'm so thankful for that, because it was through that I was able to find what God was calling me to do.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I served with kids, like with student kids, and then even with like youth, the teenagers in our old church. And smaller churches, you just jump in and do what's needed to be done. But can I tell you now, all these years later, it's like 12, 13, 14 years later, that was not my fit. It was not my gifting. I did it because it was a need, and that is great. There's purpose in that too, but it wasn't the right fit for me. Mark, on the other hand, he started here with parking, and he was itching to get with the kids. And I was like, so then ask. Just ask. Yeah. So it took me a while to learn. Yeah.
What's funny, as you were talking about that, so you served with students, youth ministry, right? Teenagers, for some time. And what I have found is, when I said yes or stayed somewhere that wasn't a good fit for me, I was actually robbing someone else of the blessing of being a part of that and serving in a role, because I was taking up a role out of, obligation and like wanting to fill a need, but somebody else God equipped that person to do that. And that was their sweet spot. And I was robbing them of that. So that's not good either. Right.
Yeah, that's right. I have a serve coach who served with us for years, who used to serve in preschool. And I remember when she came to me at the serve desk and she was like, I stepped away. I served in preschool. I stepped away for a while because I just noticed that the other volunteers there was something about them that I didn't have. There was like a joy about them that I wasn't feeling. So she recognized that it wasn't her spot. And then, we found her spot. And so, when she was serving in her spot, she came alive. So it was that self-recognition, because sometimes we hold on to things because we don't want to disappoint. We don't want to say no. We don't want to walk away. We don't want to quit, right? Right. So that's why it's really, I think, important that we try to get people in their sweet spot from the beginning. Yes. So that, and tell them it's just trying it out. If you have to say no, it's okay. We're open-handed. And I'm so glad and so thankful for a staff that has that vision and is caught on. And everyone feels that same way. So
makes all the difference. We're going to unpack that a little bit in a couple of minutes. But before we do that, one of the verses that Pastor Scott talked about on Sunday was Matthew 20, verse 25. And I know you love that verse. And do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
I can read it. I actually wrote it down because I knew we would talk about this, and I have a little note in the middle of it. So, okay. Good. So Matthew 20, 25 through 28, Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you." And that's where I'm going to stop, because this hit me today just fresh. Jesus was calling his disciples to be different, right? That's what hit me. So that's what I wrote in here. He was calling them, not so with you. He's calling them to be different. He calls us to be different in the world, right? Yes. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And that made me think of the towel. We used to hand out serve towels. And if you think about that, here's Jesus, right? The King of Kings, washing sandals. They wear sandals and dirt roads. And, it's not like our feet at the end of the day or many days, but knelt down and washed their feet, I mean, if that doesn't show us, modeled the way for us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then ultimately hung on the cross, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't, there's no greater love. There's no greater model of servanthood than laying down your life for those that you love. So that, Now that scripture is, you and Mark live out that scripture. Why are you so passionate about it? Tell us a little bit about Mark. And his story.
A little bit about Mark. Okay. I'm going to do this with a smile on my face. Mark passed away in August of 2017. And he left behind a legacy, and he lived that legacy. So I know we just talked about that recently, and one of the messages was living the legacy, and he did live it. And Mark just loved to serve people, and it just came from his heart. And, it was because of his relationship, with the Lord. And I was reading a little bit not in preparation for this, but reading a little bit of his journal that he kept through his battle with cancer. And, Jesus was all through that. Hope was all through that. He had so much hope. He had so much, pictures. He had always had a smile on his face. He just was always smiling. Like he loved the phrase, you bought him a hat, life is good. Like that was he had so many life is good t-shirts. And that was his motto, it really till the end, it really was. And the Mark that people knew out in the world, here at church and work, was the same Mark at home. He served his parents, his dad had MS, and for years we lived next door to them. And he would go up and help his mom, in the evening, help get his dad settled for bed. And he spent time with his dad, and so he served his parents. He served me as his wife, he served his kids, our community, the church, our kids' friends. He was known for his father's flying flapjacks when they slept overnight. That's what they could expect in the morning. And he didn't even eat pancakes, but he did it.
For forgot.
didn't.
He would come to the church and make us
He would come and make us pancakes. He'd come down and we would call everyone down to the cafe and you could put in pancake orders. He would do stuff for the staff. He'd drop off his favorite soft pretzels to the staff. And so he was just, I remember when I first came on staff, I said, you're like my go-to, right? But he was always happy to do anything. And it was kind of funny when he was serving with parking here and he just wanted to be with the kids. And his boys, like he moved up with them in kids ministry. So he kind of followed them and, they just had such a cool relationship. And he would come home and tell me about their dodgeball games. And I was like, you are teaching them, right? Like, cause I'm going to say Mark wasn't like, and I want to say this as encouragement, Mark wasn't like a biblical scholar or, but he loved the Lord and he loved to serve others. And I think his love for Jesus, that was his serving was the overflow, and it grew and, it just grew. And so I think it was something we modeled for our kids because when we served, we like to serve together, His work he was an aircraft mechanic for US Air and then American, and his work had it was called the Do Crew, and that was the flight attendants out of Harrisburg that ran it. And we would go and do volunteer projects with them until his health took a turn that we couldn't. But so we just, I don't know. That was just his life was just, he just didn't say no and not even say no, but he didn't really wait for people to ask, He just kind of would jump in and have his hand raised to do it.
That's so true. He would just show up. It was like, where did you come from? Well, I just heard that you were doing this thing and thought I would come and be a part of it. And go back a little bit because I think when you talked about Mark was doing parking ministry, that's because someone tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, we're starting a parking ministry. We'd love people to be outside directing people, and which was wonderful and such a key thing. But you said that something inside of him, he just wanted to be with the kids. What do you think held him back from being with the kids right from the get-go?
I know exactly what held him back. Okay. So I think he did parking for VBS that first year.
Okay.
So I think it was just a natural thing for him because he connected with that team. And like I said, Ray and Brenda Bonner were the ones that, we came here kind of following them a little bit, I guess. And I always called Mark and Ray Fred and Barney because they've just been really great friends. We've been friends with them for 30 some years. And I think Ray made a jump from parking to kids. And part of it was that Mark felt like, oh, it's going to look like I'm just following Ray. But, I remember Mark's mom would say to me, like, kids have always been drawn to him ever since he was young. Like she said, he just always had kids around him. So it took a little bit of encouraging to be like, no one is going to think that about you. You just need to talk to them. And, and he made the move and it was the best thing for him. He truly, after our kids, he truly loved those kids, those boys that he meant, I'd say mentored. Yeah. And then he mentored a couple of guys. Again, it's funny, you get to read someone's notes or their journals after they're gone. And I read some of his things about, feeling insecure and am I good enough? Stuff we all struggle with.
Sure.
But he didn't let it stop him. He didn't let him stop it. He just jumped in and did it anyway. And so I'm so grateful that he did that, Yeah.
Me too. It was so inspiring to watch him when he made that transition from the parking ministry team to kids ministry. He served as a small group leader, and mentorship is the perfect way to describe that for people that don't know. Sometimes people will hear like Sunday school teachers, but we actually have small group leaders who have a smaller group of kids. They watch the Bible story or listen to the Bible story together, and then they get into a small group and they unpack it and they talk about how to, they wrestle with it, but then they also talk about how to live that out through their, outside of Sunday throughout the week. And Mark was an incredible small group leader. Those boys knew when did he start? What grade did he start with them?
I want to say it might've been third grade.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they had in the midst of his illness, it was 4.5 years. So I think he probably would have moved up. He had several groups of kids, I think, before he actually got connected to that group that really once he found out, what he was doing and really connected with those boys, a couple of staff boys at the time. And then he moved up with them. And I think he probably would have made the jump to GTSM, to student ministry with them, but he just it was just difficult for him to continue to serve. So he would still, they would seek him out. He would seek them out when he was able to be here on a Sunday. And, he still stayed connected to them.
Yeah. They loved him so much. And for those that didn't know Mark, like there was nothing to not love about Mark. He's so lovable, much like you. Lovable. He was goofy. He was always ready with a joke or practical joke or just like an adventure, like, okay, let's go do this. And, but really but such a servant. And those boys got to watch him serve, and he would do some serve projects with them as well. Right. Like let them be a part of that and experience what it is to actually serve Jesus and to not be a consumer, right? Not to just like, okay, it's all about me, but it was, again, he modeled for them like that upside down kingdom mentality of others first versus me first. And you're right. I remember his celebration of life service was all about like everybody that spoke. And even afterwards when people were talking and still to this day, we talk about that, how like Mark was a servant and that was his legacy. And he was just incredible.
Yeah. I think I remember when he was first diagnosed, one of the first things he said was, am I going to have to stop being a small group leader? And, and I don't say that to pump, Mark, if you knew Mark, you loved Mark. So
yes,
but that was super important to him. And then, fast forward 4.5 years, I remember being in the hospital and he got really close. Like and that was just his spirit. Like he got really close to his medical team down at Penn, and the two nurses, they were like sisters to him. And, he'd say, do you need me to encourage a patient? We met patients, and, he's part of a lung cancer group, and just, the way he battled and walked through that. But I remember his one nurse walking from the cancer center over to the hospital to see him the last time he was in the hospital. And, we had kind of been told that there wasn't much more that they could do. And I remember her saying to him, I want to ask you this question, how do you feel about this journey and all that you've been through? And she was a person of faith. And he said to her, doing like the clinical trials and all that, he said, I guess in the end, if what all I've been through helps someone else, then it will have been worth it. Yeah, I don't want to get choked up, but that is just the epitome of who he was, And on Sunday in Pastor Scott's message, I don't want to veer off, but he talked about good works. And I wrote down that I just wanted to make sure that it's, very, very, very clear that I know that Mark is in heaven today, but Mark is not there because of his good works. He's there because he professed Jesus as his savior, and his good works and his serving, that was the outcome of that, that was he would say, yeah, I might have the little c referring to cancer, but I have the big C inside of me referring to Christ. And that's like, it's written in his journal so many times, I can't even tell you, but that's what he, hung on to. And when you are faced with something so life-threatening, like you take stock of what's important, and he clung to his faith more than anything, And so, I just wanted to make sure that we're clear. Mark was a great guy. Mark served the Lord. Mark loved people well. Mark loved me and our family well, but he loved the Lord. And that's why I can be at peace now, Yeah. Yeah. So
he loved the Lord, and that was his love for the Lord. Like you said, he served because he realized how much Jesus served him, how much Jesus loved him, and just felt like, okay, this is just the way to live now. I've been loved. I've been given so much grace. I have been given, right? And so now this is how I want to live my life. I love, I think we've talked about this before, like God's gift to us is eternal life through Jesus Christ by putting our faith and trust in Jesus Christ. Our gift back to God, not to earn it, because we can never earn it, but our gift back to God is how we live our life and how we serve others in that process. And I know you are so passionate about you're so passionate about a lot of things, but in particular that God has uniquely wired all of us to serve him in some capacity, right? There's not a one size fits all, for sure. But I've heard you also say that, that you really believe that it grieves God when we leave the gifts that he's given us unwrapped.
Unwrapped,
So
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever gotten a gift that just wasn't a good fit for you and you feel bad because you don't use it, right? Or maybe given someone a gift, even more so, given someone a gift and you never see them use it. And, there's just this pit because you think, oh, they didn't like it, or, and so that's what I think about how God has gifted us. Like, what if we go our whole lives and we don't unwrap those gifts? Mm-hmm. Maybe because, and maybe it's not even on purpose. Right. Maybe it's just because we don't know any better and no one's talked to us about it, or we haven't taken those steps to figure out, okay, sometimes we can go through life just thinking we're not special, or, comparing ourselves to others. Right. And that's been my big thing since discovering all of this. Like, boy, when you know how you are gifted and you know how God has uniquely shaped, right? We use shape a lot, shaped you can stop comparing yourself. Don't compare yourself to Christine, because God has wired and gifted her differently than you. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. You just got to step into it. And once you step into it, oh my goodness, the places you can go and the things that he can do through you. Mm-hmm. I always say, like, it's so awesome what we get to do, for God, what we get to do, just even to think in this big wide world, to be a little part of what he's doing. And I don't mean to say we're insignificant, but just to be a little part, because we will probably not ever see all of the fruit of that here, right? Mm-hmm. But when you do, like, see or hear a story and like, oh my goodness, I talked to that person, and then someone else took it a step further and now that person is saved and serving, and like, oh my goodness, you don't have to be part of the whole story, but just to be a little piece of it. That to me is so exciting, when we get to be a piece of what God is doing.
That's right.
And furthering his kingdom. The world needs Jesus, right?
There's nothing more significant to do with our lives, right? And we're not talking about being on staff, right? I mean, it is so many times. Well, let me go back to something you said about comparison. I heard somebody once say that comparison, when we compare ourselves to others and their giftings, it is the ultimate insult to God, because he gave us our giftings. And all we have to do is not look to compare, but look inside and say, okay, God, what are the gifts that are inside of me? Let's unwrap these so that I can be a part of what you're doing. So I can partner with you to make a difference in this world. And, God's word reveals that our purpose is to serve God by serving others. So many times we're like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? And it feels like this great, big, daunting thing. But that's it right there. It's to be salt and light in this world, to serve others. And so many times the most significant things are the small things, right? Yeah. It's the random acts of kindness. It's what Pastor Scott talked about, like letting others go first in the food line, or it's picking up trash that you see because you realize that this world, God's creation, is a gift. It's smiling. It's just holding the door for somebody to just help them feel seen and valued, that you recognize that they're made in the image of God and that they are loved. Like, those things are so significant. And sometimes we overlook them and we think, oh no, it's got to be the big thing. Oh, that's, there's the pastor on stage, like that's living a life of purpose and significance. No, it's being kind to your coworker.
Yeah.
It's your mission field in your home, being the best parent that God has created you to be. Those are the crucial things.
Yeah. And I think too, like, just talking about like living that legacy, it's doing it quietly. You see somebody emptying their cart at the grocery store, grab their cart for them. It's those little things, because you just never know. One of the things I love to do, maybe this will inspire somebody, I love to save my Starbucks points. And then they'll say to me, do you want to use your points? I'm like, no. And then use them to bless like the car behind you. So it's like it's just so simple, but and you pull away and maybe you'll hear a toot, or maybe they don't even know yet. And you just do it anonymously and you pull away and you just don't know what you don't know. And I think too, when God prompts us to do stuff like that, like we need to pay attention to that,
Absolutely.
we just need to pay attention to that. But yeah.
Those little things, whether it's the awkward and just do it and make somebody's day, because man, that's planting seeds. So good.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go back to comparison thing. And I'm just going to share my story. I did not grow up in church, came to GT, baby, like didn't understand anything about the Bible, didn't understand anything about church, looked around, hid in the back for a really long time. And watched. And then I had 3 kids in kids ministry, and started to feel a little guilty because here I am just like dropping off my kids. It took me about 1.5 years, right? Of just like, and observing and kind of, and watching like these people, these volunteer teams have fun, do things together. And I remember feeling like I'm missing out. But if I'm being honest, what was happening to me, Pastor Brian would get up on the stage and he'd say, hey, kind of like Pastor Scott's doing right now. Like, we want to grow, we want to continue to move forward and do all these things, but it's going to take an army. Like, come on, let's all be a part of this. And I would hear that and I would shrink in my seat. And I would think, he's not talking to me. I know he's talking to the people in front of me and the people behind me, but he's not talking to me, because if he only knew who I was, what I've done, what I've been through, what I don't know, not a Bible scholar, don't even know where to find a book in the Bible, like not me, so disqualified. I was looking around comparing my gifts. Actually, I wasn't doing that because I didn't really even know I had any. And just looking at other people's gifts and going, yep, they've got it, because what can I offer? And then somebody sat me down, tapped me on the shoulder and said, I see this in you. Come on, let's take a step. And then somebody came alongside of me and they said, come on, let's take another step, and led me on this journey of discovering the gifts that God, and I'm still discovering them, right? We're all still on that journey. You never go like, oh, this is the one. No, it's like, but so what I love about what you do and the teams that you oversee is you help people who are kind of on the fence going, maybe feeling like I did, or maybe just feeling like, I don't know what I would even do. I know I have some gifts, but could God use them in the church? And you and your team actually do something called serve coaching. So just talk quickly, because we've got to wrap up here, but like a couple of minutes about what would you say to somebody who's on the fence? What can you do to help them find their fit in the kingdom of God?
Okay. So first I would say, just give us a little time, give us that conversation with a serve coach. And, there's some things that we ask you to do in preparation for that, but really just sit down. Sometimes coaching is the first opportunity someone has who's maybe newer to GT to sit one-on-one with someone. And our coaches understand that. We're wonderful volunteer coaches. And we've been coaching on Zoom. So don't let this pandemic time stop you. We can do that too. But it's just sitting down and through a series of questions and conversation, asking them, hey, tell me your story. We just want to get to know them first and foremost. We want to help them uncover their gifts. We have some resources, some spiritual gifts assessment that we use to help uncover. It's an online kind of thing that you do, but it helps you uncover what the ways that God has gifted you. And we have very pointed questions that will get to someone's, the spiritual gifts will get to their heart. I'll ask them, tell me, if you had to finish the sentence, I have a heart for, how would you finish that? Their abilities, their passion, their experiences, what kinds of, we do ask, what have you done previously that you can say for sure, certain was not a good fit, because we want to steer clear of those things. So it really is that one-on-one conversation of the serve coach just uncovering, who is this person and how are they gifted? And, how can we help them to find their place in ministry?
Wait.
We love it. We love it.
So big church like GT with a lot of different roles, from facility to digital, online, photographers, kids ministry, student ministries, tech, like all of the things. You mean to tell me that you actually take the time to figure out how somebody is uniquely wired, instead of just saying, hey, we've got these needs, let's just put you in because we need a warm body?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you take somebody now, I told you, it took me a long time to realize I wasn't serving in the right spot.
Yeah.
So we try to help steer somebody away from that. And I love that we've figured it out. It took a while, right? You didn't always do this. I was on the serve team when it was new, about 10, 11 years ago. So it's no longer really new, but, and we've helped other churches to develop it too, but it really steers a person clear. And then we don't say you're signing on for 6 months, you're signing on for a year, you're signing on forever. If you go out and try it, we call it a test drive, Yep. You go try a car before you buy it, right? We let the lead, you connect with the team, with other volunteers, see if you like it. You have the opportunity to say, not for me, let's go to choice number 2. Let's try something else. And we tell them right up front, it's okay to say no. We're going to keep at it until we find your fit. Because like you said, a lot of people think maybe what they do for work, they can't do here. Maybe what they do for work, they don't want to do in church on Sunday. And we get all sides of the coin. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that we do it that way. I really do. Mm-hmm.
I do too, because it sends the message that we value people, we love people. It's not about warm bodies filling a need. God fills the need when we are faithful with his people that he loves so much. And it's so fun to watch people find their fit and come alive. There's nothing like that. It's such a cool thing.
Yeah.
So just so thankful for what you do. And we say it all the time, right? That it's what we want for you.
Yes.
Not what we want from you, right?
Yes.
It's what God wants for you. He wants you to be connected to other believers. He wants you to be on mission for him together. It changes your life. It makes you, we hear it all the time, right? And I know personally I experienced it. Like, I come alive when I'm doing the things that God has uniquely gifted me to do. So cool, so significant, such a meaningful life to live.
Well, you said earlier, if you're doing the wrong thing, you're robbing someone else of a spot. But if you do nothing, you're robbing yourself.
That's right.
Relationships. For me, when I first began serve coaching, I would send a person out to a team. And then because I'd make that initial connection with them. And, I'm a people person, I'm a relationship person. Mm-hmm. And then I'd send them out to a team and I'd see them building relationships with the people on that team. And for just a second, I would be like, oh, they're mine. Yep. But then I had to realize, like, no, Kim, you are going to see hundreds of people. You need to let them go. Yes, and so I love that. I love when I see somebody just connecting with the team, connecting with other volunteers, making lasting friendships. Mm-hmm. And then you start hearing about, people are, getting in a life group. And now people are doing things outside of church together. And, it's just awesome to see. And because your spiritual walk can't help but be affected. That's while right. This is happening. So
that's that growing together part, right? We grow together in life groups, we grow together on volunteer teams. It's powerful, and we want that for everybody, right? I know you do. I love what you do. I love the care that you show. I mean, to be able to provide that one-on-one serve coaching, sitting with somebody, whether it's on Zoom or in person, just looking them in the eye and saying, let's figure out how God has uniquely wired you so that you can be a part of this. It's unbelievable. And we are just so grateful, Kim. You lived out that legacy that Mark lived as well. You are passionate about this, and it just exudes from you. And that's obviously same thing that you talked about, Mark, right? Like your love for Jesus and the time you spend with him is an overflow by the way that you serve others and you love others. And we are just blessed, blessed to have you. Anything else you want to say as we wrap up here?
I do. I want to say to whoever is out there that are our volunteers that are watching, we say this all the time. We love our volunteers. And I just want to say those aren't words. We absolutely do. We are so thankful, especially in this last year, the way we have had volunteers flip to other teams, be flexible. Some of my
Yeah.
serve coaches have been serving on GT Live, hosting, and just doing other things. And so we love that flexibility that they've had, and just the way, just the faithfulness. It's just being faithful, So we love you so much. And if you are not connected to a serve team, please track us down on Sunday morning out at the hub. You can go to our website. We're there now. You can click right on I'm interested and get started on the website. So come join us May 16th for Serve Link. 2 more Sundays, right? 2 more Sundays. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome.
Can't wait to meet you and help you get connected.
Well, we love you, Kim. And I feel the same way. It's exciting. It's an exciting journey, and it's the kind of journey that makes life worth living. So, all right. Well, guys, we're going to wrap up here. If you missed Pastor Scott's message from this past Sunday, you can always go back and watch on our website or our YouTube channel. And don't forget to download the GT Church podcast so you don't miss out on any of our sermons or our Growing Together episodes. Thanks again for joining us today. I'll see you next week for the next episode of Growing Together.